Up next on the Marmy Rock Show, very excited to have Gary from the band Mellor. They're out of Reading, England. They've got a new single out that's made it into our Golden Dozen, so we had to get them on the show. The single is called You Were Right. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
So, hey man, I really appreciate you being here. I love getting bands from the UK on our show. Now, I am going to tell you, I'm new to your band, so the first thing I want to ask you is you can give me a little bit of the history or the bio of how the band formed and how long you guys have been around.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the band first officially formed, I put it together, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years ago. But that was with a few friends from college, and the only existing members are me and the bassist. So this current lineup has probably only been 2 or 3 years, to be honest. Quite a short amount of time. So yeah, it's sort of we've sort of been pining for. We knew what sort of lineup we wanted, so we've just sort of been trying to work towards, getting the right people in the right positions, and it's all seemed to have. It's all sort of clicked perfectly in the last couple of years. So so we're flying now.
Now, as I mentioned, what drew me to you guys and how I found you was the single "You Were Right." Now, I know you've had a string of some singles out, but let's start talking about that song first. Tell me a little bit about that song, how long it's been around, and maybe the story behind it.
Well, this song is actually one of them that was around quite a while before it was recorded. It might be one of them that just took a little bit longer in the practice studio to get sounding tight and whatnot. But the song is basically about a relationship between two people where maybe it's a little bit confrontational and suspicious. So the whole song is basically about I don't know. It's almost like a sarky reply to someone making a mountain out of a molehill, if you know what I
mean. Yeah, I sure do. Now, hey, I've noticed you guys have been releasing a steady stream of singles in 2017, which is a model a lot of bands are using now as opposed to doing a full EP. Is that working well for you guys? Is that a strategy you're going to continue?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with us, it's not necessarily to do with strategy. It's more to do with finance, really. I mean, we're all, we all try and work as much as we can to fuel the band and stuff, but it's expensive. If you think of all the things you've got to do, you've got to get in the studio then to release them. If you want physical copies, you've got to pay out for that. If you want to do a video, you need to fork out for that. So I think in terms of releasing singles, we can sort of afford to get into the studio, do say 4 songs, and then we can release them over time rather than just releasing them all together. Because then we'd just be spending too much money on recording and stuff. I mean, personally, I think we have enough songs to do 4 or 5 EPs in a year, but it's just unfortunately we can't quite do that. I mean, we're ready for an album. Like, we'd love to do one. But it's just getting enough money together. It will be on the horizon, but I can't put a date on it.
Yeah, and that is so common with bands. It is so expensive to do that. Now, as I started, researching you guys and looking back through all those singles that came out, another one that I really kind of took to was the one called Bone Idol. So tell me a little bit about that tune.
Yeah, Bone Idol. But personally, that's my favourite at the moment. That does change around, but. This song was a strange one. We were getting ready to go into the studio, and a week before, our bassist. See the way in which we write songs is you will usually have the idea for the song, whether it's lyrics or a melody, and then we'll build on it. But our bassist Josh, he came to a practice, literally just with the bass riff that sort of just went the din 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 do 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 do, and it was something really simplistic and. That song was written in one practice session about a week before we went in the studio, and so when we went into the studio, we sort of turned all our plans on its head, and we thought, well, let's just do this new tune. We didn't even have any lyrics for it yet, so I had to write some the day before we went into the studio. But it seemed to work out. It was just one of them where everything clicked, but. I mean, that song, if you had to put a meaning behind it, there's quite a few small cryptic little meanings. I sort of I like writing lyrics that people can sort of relate to, but can never quite put their finger on exactly what they mean. But I mean, for me, it could be written about someone I know who I essentially, it was probably about someone who was quite attractive, but they used their looks and charm to be really lazy, to be honest. So Bone Idol was sort of just like, it's almost like, well, you're lazy, but you can get away with it, sort of thing.
Now, as I was listening to that song, it has kind of a fun music video you guys took, and it looks like you were just having a blast at your shows. Now, tell me a little bit more about the live shows. It looks like you've had a bunch of shows there in the London kind of area. Do you have a lot more planned right now?
We will for the new year. We're hoping to get all around the UK. I mean, our dream is to get to the States, but it's the whole money thing again, unfortunately. But yeah, we actually love playing live. It's the reason we do it, to be honest. When you're in a band and you've got a crowd that's loving it, like that's what it's all about, really. You work so hard in the studio, practicing and writing, and then your reward is people's reactions at the shows. And we're all great pals and stuff as well. So going up and down the country in a little van, it's we love every minute of it. But yeah, our shows are usually pretty loud, sweaty, energetic affair. I mean, it's supposed to be fun. Like, I've been to so many shows where people sort of just stood there, they can't wait to go home. That for me is my worst nightmare. Like, I don't. If people ever feel like that, then I'm doing something wrong.
Well, I've never seen you live, but I can tell from looking through your Facebook page at the pictures, it sure seems like you guys have that down to a science, man. All your fans just seem to be having a blast at those shows. So, hey, I'm really enjoying listening and becoming a fan of the band, and as I was listening to you, it's really kind of hard to, I don't want to stick a label on you. Are you punk, or you rock, or you whatever? So I was going to go ask you about, like, your musical roots. Like, what did you grow up on, and did any of that translate into your style today?
Well, I'm very glad you said punk, because the band name actually came from Joe Strummer from The Clash. It's his real last name, and he's an absolute hero of mine. So I mean, for me, my favourite groups are quite a lot of 70s, 80s, sort of punk, post-punk. I like a lot of obviously the classic, the British, classic British punk scene of Pistols and Clash and stuff. But I'm all into Joy Division, Smiths, Echo and the Bunnymen. But I mean, so it's all combined. I mean, as a band, we all like so many different bands and genres and stuff. I mean, me personally, with my songwriting, it's all a lot of Britpop. But it's all a massive mixture. But I can still get influenced by modern music still coming out now. I mean, I don't particularly listen to it too much, chart music, but it all has its merits. But yeah, there's a lot of punk and post-punk comes from me. But the other guys listen to a lot of heavier rock, sort of your Led Zeppelins and Metallicas and stuff. So it's all a really great combo from all four of us, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually, hearing you say that, can just feel that's kind of put my finger on exactly what I was thinking. You got somebody in that band that's into the classic punk, and you got a couple modern, like, harder rockers. So yeah, that it comes through as that for sure.
Yeah, and that's great, because that means our sounds, true to us. We're not, we wouldn't want to make music that we don't dig ourselves, which is the key, really. If we didn't like our own music, then how can we expect anyone else to like it?
Now, talking about the musical styles, I kind of wonder, over here in the States, I don't want to say rock and roll is underground again, but it, pop and country and other stuff has taken over here, and it almost, in some ways, is almost a fun thing to me. It reminds me of, like, the 80s pre-hair metal stuff when you would go into, like, the smaller clubs, and it was a scene. What's it like in England now? Is it, like, the same way?
Do you know what? It's really strange in England at the moment, because it wasn't that long ago where indie music was key. I think Arctic Monkeys really brought that back. I mean, when Strokes came around, Strokes were massive for the early 2000s. Strokes really, obviously they're coming out of New York. But over here, they made such a big impact, and they really set a note for a lot of bands after that. So you've got, Libertines, who wouldn't have been around if it wasn't for the Strokes, Arctic Monkeys, and they were sort of mid 2000s, so 2004, 2005. It was huge. Indie was really taken over, but in the past few years, there is a good scene for it. I mean, we've got bands like Royal Blood, and there's a lot of good bands out, but it is a little bit more underground now. To find those good indie bands, you do sort of have to, only a few break into the mainstream at the moment compared to what they used to. But there is a lot of more synthy dance stuff. There's some bands that may call themselves like indie rock, but they'll still use synthesized drums and stuff like that. So it's they can't really call it that.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Now, you guys being a DIY band, tell me about what the studio's like. Do you have like a lot of the bands like that'll have one guy that's the producer or one guy that's the songwriter? Are you guys like organic, or do people have specific roles when you guys record?
We have our one guy we've worked with for the past few years. That's Mo. So he's the producer, but we love working with him because he gets us. He trusts everything we do. Like he doesn't need to get involved in the songwriting. Only very occasionally he'll pop up and say, "Oh, this needs to change." And if he does do something, then he means it, which is great. So, I mean, like I said, I'm sort of the sole songwriter, but we before we go into the studio, we really like to develop the songs as much as we can to the point where we physically just can't change anything about it, because then we know that song is ready to go into the studio, and then we may add bits and bobs on in production. To be honest, it's great because we all chip in with it. No one really takes the full reins. It's it's a piece of work built up by everyone, the four of us and our producer, and and that's how the best tunes and the best EPs and LPs are made. It's just as one, unless you're talking about Brian Wilson, Beach Boys or something, but that's a whole different kettle of fish, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. Well, man, we've been talking with Gary from the band Mellor. They're out of Reading, England. Their new single, You Were Right, spending its third week on our Golden Dozen chart, and I've really gotten to enjoy listening and getting to know your band, and I do hope either I make it over there to see you at a show, or you make it over here to see you at a show sometime soon. So
we'd love that equally, whichever way around. Preferably we'd like to come over there, to be honest, man.
Well, we'd love to have you, man. This has been Gary from Mellor, and Gary, I really appreciate you being on the show, man.
Absolute pleasure. Great talking to you.